NCSA is the market leader in Path to College solutions. We provide innovative communication tools, in-depth education, personalized support, and expert guidance during all stages of the Path to College process. We believe in leveling the college playing field for all and work to ensure that every student has the best opportunity to find a college that is the right fit for them.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today for this information session for TAPS Soccer Playoffs 2023. My name is John Skees. I'm the Director of Media at TAPS. I am joined here in the office today by Brian Bunselmeyer, TAPS Executive Director, Robert Huckabee, TAPS Associate Director and Director of Compliance, and Steve Huhulen, TAPS Athletic Director. Will Dixon from the TAPS office staff is helping us out behind the keyboard today. This will cover everything related to the upcoming TAPS Winter Soccer Playoffs, and we're going to make this available to you on our YouTube page. That is youtube.com/TAPSBiz, so that you can easily share this information with anybody on your campus who needs to see it. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Brian, and we're going to get started.
Hard to believe it's February the 16th and soccer playoffs are here upon us, and the championships will be in a couple of 3 weeks. We look forward to everybody that makes it through to the playoffs. We wish everybody the best, and congratulations to everybody who played and made it through the regular season as well. That's an accomplishment. We had a few teams that didn't make it to the end, so congratulations to everybody for finishing. The brackets are posted and have been posted on the TAPS website. Once district certified today, we will be updating the brackets as we go. For seeds 1 through 3, the higher seed is home until the regional round, and then it is a neutral site. So by district and area are higher seed, with regional being neutral site unless otherwise agreed upon. I think the 6As may have agreed that regional will be higher seed. But if it's a 4 seed versus a 5 seed, that will always be a neutral site. So 4 versus 5 is a neutral site game. 1 through 3 are higher until you get to the Final Four, and we're excited to be offering a Final Four this year for our soccer teams. Robert, tell us a little bit about game administration.
Thank you, Brian. As you guys know, throughout the year, as you host games as the home team, you're responsible to have a game administrator there to deal with all the preparation for the game, playing of the game, all the details afterward to make sure everything goes smoothly. Once we move into the playoffs, regardless where the game is being played, whether it's a home game or a neutral site game, both schools are required to have a game administrator on site, on duty for all playoff games. What are your responsibilities? Well, you'll be there as the fans arrive. You'll coordinate details with the other game administrator, whether it's a home game or a neutral site game. If it's a neutral site game, you'll be coordinating those details with your neutral site host at that facility, and then you'll be responsible to make sure the officials are taken care of, the game goes smoothly. If there are any issues, certainly we hope they're not, but if there are, obviously you address those and handle those issues. Make sure everybody gets in and out safely. Keep in mind that if it's your home site or if it's a neutral site, make sure you know what that emergency action plan is for that facility, that you have all those things in place with regard to entry and exit. Should an ambulance be needed, you have the AED on site. All those kind of things that you normally do at a home game, don't forget, those need to be addressed as you move through neutral sites throughout the playoffs. Steve, talk to us more specifically about some of those game details.
Sure. There are a lot of details about the game that you need to visit with your opponent and come into agreement with. You can find most of these in Section 141 of the TAPS bylaws. But first of all, the date that your playoff game is found on the TAPS calendar. However, you can come into an agreement to play at an earlier date. Playing at a later date is not allowed except with prior approval from the TAPS office. You do need to set the time, obviously, the game time for that game. You need to come to a mutual agreement on that. If you can't agree, you can always toss a coin. The location, when you reach the regional round, which is at a neutral site, you need to come to a mutual agreement on that as well. If you can't agree, each of you can pick a site and toss a coin. Discuss what what the admission will be, the admission rate for an adult, for a student. Come to a mutual agreement so that there's an understanding of what your fans will be paying when they get there. TAPS approved passes. Obviously, all of your TAPS passes are allowed. No school or district passes are allowed. Now, if one school through the season has always allowed the students to come in free, make sure that both students from both schools are allowed to come in. Something really important, health and safety, to keep in mind this time of the year is weather considerations, and you can find those in Section 138 of the TAPS bylaws. But keep in mind that weather here in Texas is a little bit unpredictable, and you need to be proactive and have plans in place. If you have lightning or thunderstorms, the TAPS bylaws show that if there's a lightning strike within 10 miles, you need to wait at least 30 minutes. And you can find those specified, as I said, in the TAPS bylaws in Section 138. Temperature as well. We have big swings of temperature this time of year, and if the chill factor and outside temperature reaches 32 degrees, you cannot play this game without mutual consent of both teams involved, and you need to keep the safety and health of those kids in mind through all of these kind of things. Security is very important, so make sure you discuss how you're going to handle that, who you're going to hire. Media access. Is there going to be live streaming? Is there going to be radio? Is there going to be photographers? The important thing here is come to a mutual agreement where both schools can have access to media promotion. Brian, can you talk to us about officials?
The farther we've gone on into the year, the officials become more and more important. I know that they're there to keep the pitch as level a playing field as possible. But we're going to walk through a couple of things. One thing is in 131, Section A.C of the TAPS bylaws. Coaches and players should accept decisions of sports officials without protest, without questioning their honesty or integrity, and extend protection and courtesy to sports officials. That's a big deal right now, as we're not seeing that all the time in our games, and I think it's soccer playoffs, with it's one and done, lends itself to a situation where you may not like what the official says or how they say it, but we do have to accept that. The other thing that comes about is there will be a home team, even if it's on. You should always decide whether it's who's going to be home and who's going to be visitor. But even if it's a neutral site, but all officials must be satisfactory to both parties, and what that means is whether you're using a two-man crew or a three-man crew, we prefer the three-man crew all the way through state. If all you can get is two, then obviously you're going to have to probably drop back to a two-man crew, but they're going to have to be mutually agreed upon. So just because it's your home game does not necessarily mean you use your local chapter unless both teams agree. And there's several things that will go on. If you don't agree and you want a chapter a ways away, you're going to have to spend some money for travel. Again, we prefer a three-man crew, but you can do a two by mutual agreement. Payment always needs to be immediate or as close to immediate as possible for our playoff officials. So if you're the home team or whoever's making those arrangements, please make sure you get our officials paid as quickly as possible. And there is a TAPS approved pay scale. You go to www.taps.biz, you click on resources, you click on officials, and it'll drop down to the TASO pay scale. So make sure that you are paying them scale for the by district, the area, and the regional contest. Robert, talk to us about game finances. I'm sure officials will be a big part of that, but tell us a little bit more about what folks need to remember and what they need to know.
So as you move through the playoffs, keep in mind you're either going to be dealing with a home game that's hosted by the higher seed, or you'll be dealing with a neutral site game. In either instance, you do need to talk about and agree upon who's going to handle issues and deal with the issue of finances. You'll have a facility, you'll have facility workers, gate workers, you'll be taking admission, you'll have costs probably for security personnel, health and safety, and then certainly the officials. Be proactive in securing officials as you go throughout the playoffs. We've already heard in our office some times and locations are going to dictate availability. Officials might be real thin. So you might have to schedule your game and work through the issue of finances and details based on the availability of officials. So keep that in mind as you work with each other and go through that. If it's a home game, the home team bears all the expenses. They retain their concession stand earnings. If, however, after admission and gate, there are funds left over after all the expenses have been paid, then what's left over, that profit, is split between the two teams because the visiting team did have travel expenses. If, however, it's a neutral site game, we really prefer one team kind of takes the lead in accepting responsibility for all the payments and the disbursements. Expenses are split evenly between the two teams if the gate does not cover all of those costs and all of those expenses. And then once again, if there are funds remaining after all the expenses have been paid, then that profit is split between the two teams. So as you work through the playoffs and as you secure neutral site games, many neutral site hosts will do a turnkey type arrangement. Just make sure everybody's on the same page, making sure the officials get paid and that everybody's taken care of. Steve, talk to us about auxiliary groups.
Sure. Whenever you have a game, you do understand that the athletes aren't the only ones that are going to be out there performing. And so when you're setting up this playoff game with your opponents, make sure you discuss auxiliary groups. Find out whether the other team's cheer team, dance team, band, drumline, whoever else might be performing that day, and come to an agreement on those provisions. If there's going to be a dressing room available for them, where you plan to seat these groups during the game, and when they can perform, make sure that you provide equal access and have a complete understanding of who is going to perform when. Brian, I think we have an official ball.
As with all year, the Bodden Perfection Thermo ST7, or a Bodden Perfection with the NFHS sticker, is the approved ball for taps. That not only is the game ball that you start the contest with, it's also all the auxiliary balls that you keep that may come into play later on. Bodden is the only ball that can be used during the playoffs, so if you're using something different, now's a great time to change. If you're the visiting team and you show up and they've got something else, make sure you present the Bodden Perfection to the officials to be used for the official game ball.
All right, score reporting. This is an exciting time as everybody starts looking at the brackets as we are sitting here today. This is certification date for soccer, so we'll start populating those brackets as everybody certifies their district, and then everybody will be looking at those brackets to see the matchups and then scores and results to determine if you win, who your next opponent is. Score reporting has been a point of emphasis this year. We've really tried to help our schools do that more diligently. It has improved, and we certainly appreciate your cooperation in that. I will say soccer's done a pretty good job this year across the board, so we do appreciate that. Thank you for doing that. It becomes even more important as we go through the playoffs. Both teams will enter their results in rank 1 with regard to all the games that are played. Our winning coach needs to send us a playoff game report on the TAPS website to let us know, if you already know, or as soon as you know, what that next matchup is. Right now, we're going to jump to the website, show you an easy place to do this on the website. Will, if you'll jump over to the main TAPS website, then click on Athletics there. And then when we get to athletics, there's a bright yellow box right there in the middle, playoff game info and reporting form. If you click on that form, it's real simple. There's a drop down for your classification or division, what sport, the winning team and the score, the losing team and the score. And then down there on next round game info, if you have it at that time, go ahead and fill that in for us. If you've already reached out to your potential winning opponents and y'all have made arrangements, please go ahead and include that in there. If not, go ahead and just submit it anyway with that score so we can populate that bracket as soon as possible, and then send that next opponent and next game detail to us as soon as you know that. Steve, talk to us about warm-up games.
We do get questions here in the TAPS office during the playoffs about warm-up games, and TAPS does allow one warm-up game for each round of the playoffs. These games do count in your final record, but they do not count for your total number of games played as far as the limit that we allow for games. They do need to be played before the date of that round listed on the calendar, but you are allowed one warm-up game for each round of the playoffs. Brian, talk to us about Final Four and any final thoughts.
This cycle, we have gone back to the Final Four for soccer. We stayed away from that for 8 to 10 years based on coaches' ask, and now coaches have asked to be back to the Final Four. A majority asked for it, so we're bringing it back. We will be at the Round Rock Multipurpose Complex. They do have grass, and they have artificial turf fields. One of the big things that's going to go on by the time we get there is weather may dictate which fields we have to use and the timing, so the schedule you see on the screen is tentative. The schedule we have posted and on the brackets is tentative based on whether they will allow us on the grass. The Big 12 does play their championships there. They're used to hosting high-level contests, and we look forward to having our officials from across the state there to officiate. So the Final Four schedule is posted. We're going to stick to it as close as we can. Can't guarantee you which field you're going to be on, but we'll be posting that as soon as we can once the brackets continue to fill, basically using that yellow box that Robert talked about with Final Four scores. So Final Four, Round Rock Multipurpose Complex coming your way soon. As we get to the end, and I consider, kind of a wrap up here, a few things come to mind. Plan together, plan together, plan together. All decisions on playoffs are by mutual agreement. Just because you're the higher seed in hosting, you definitely need to reach out to your opponent and make sure everything is going there. The game dates are set on the calendar, as we've discussed. If you play earlier, that's okay. Getting released to play later has to be done by the TAPS office if we would allow that at all under extenuating circumstances. The prohibited activities in Section 138, just make sure that you go back through there and make sure you tell your fans what they can and can't do. Very important that they don't bring air horns and those things and get in trouble. The other thing on prohibited activities, I will say for the teams, make sure you understand that removing the blouse, removing the jersey after a goal-scoring opportunity and running around is an immediate red card. So there's been some discussion whether that will be applied or not. It definitely applies. So if they strip their blouse as a result of scoring, the Brandy Chastain move in TAPS is kind of frowned upon. It's an immediate red card. Passes, make sure that you look back on your passes. You do have to accept the Texas high school coaches, Texas high school athletic directors, all TAPS passes. What's not accepted for free entry would be your local school pass or your district pass. Just make sure that that's on your list of things to look at, because that's what's going to happen at the Texas State Championships for TAPS. Championship information, we will be having a webinar on 2/27 for those that advance. So February the 27th, we will be having a webinar to go over who's home, who's away, and all those rules. We'll be receiving additional information on the Final Four at that time. And one thing I wouldn't do right now as you go into the playoffs, obviously we have teams spread across the state of Texas, so we don't do a uniform check. But make sure if you go to nfhs.org, click on activities, click on soccer, go through that soccer uniform PowerPoint. Please make sure all your uniforms are in compliance, because we will be checking that at the Final Four. Might as well get a jump start on that all the way. Should have been doing that all year, but let's get a jump start on that and make sure we're ready when we go in the playoffs. Follow the rules, follow the rules, follow the rules. Make sure you treat officials as guests. Make them feel as important as they are to your game. And remember, removal from a contest at this stage gets a little more expensive and a little farther down the road. Don't get removed from a contest, whether you're a player or a coach. We look forward to seeing everybody at the Final Four. If you have questions, please reach out to the TAPS office, info at taps.biz, 254-947-9268. Congratulations again to everybody on a fantastic 2022-23 soccer season, and we look forward to crowning our champions in Round Rock in early March. John, lead us out of here with our social media and our media opportunities.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Steve, Robert, and Will. Once again, folks, this recording is going to be made available on our YouTube page. That's youtube.com/tapsbiz, where you can find all of our webinars and meeting recordings. You can get to that through the website. If you go to taps.biz, click on the resources drop down, and you'll see an option for webinar and meeting recordings. Our TAPS social media for soccer is at TAPS Soccer. That's for winter soccer and fall soccer. If you're taking pictures, if you're putting stuff up, please tag us. We like to retweet that stuff. We like to see what you guys are up to. That's where we're going to have links to Final Four broadcasts, tickets, and other information. So be sure to share that account with your fans right now, just so they can follow that along across the state. And we will see you. We'll see you soon.
NCSAFE is the market leader in Path to College solutions. We provide innovative communication tools, in-depth education, personalized support, and expert guidance during all stages of the Path to College process. We believe in leveling the college playing field for all and work to ensure that every student has the best opportunity to find a college that is the right fit for them.